Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Want to bring you a quicker update here tonight on our severe weather threat for Friday. There have been a few changes since I did some of my updates. The biggest change here is that the enhanced risk area has shifted off a little bit more towards the east. And once I go through some of the data, I think you'll see why here in a second. But enhanced risk there in the orange, and then, of course, the yellow is the slight risk. So everybody in Indiana under at least a slight risk. It excludes just a little tiny portion of Posey County down here, but pretty much everybody under at least some sort of a risk tomorrow for severe weather. And we'll talk about the timing in a minute, but primarily this is going to be more of an evening threat. Let's look at future radar. I think that'll help answer some of your questions a little bit. All right, so here we go during the day tomorrow, and this will be Friday morning, and you can see out some things out in Illinois starting to develop. There's a line starting to develop during the course of the daytime. It struggles to get its act together early on. Not really great parameters for severe weather out there. As we get a little bit closer to time, here's about 5 o'clock. You notice you got a line rolling through northern Indiana already, but here you are just with kind of a broken line down here, getting close to the Wabash River. And then here we go by about 6 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, and that's whenever you get some cells starting to enter southwest Indiana here. But notice all of this ahead of this as well. And if I back up, you see some of these individual storms sort of starting to pop here ahead of this line a little bit. And so this would be about 6 o'clock here as I show you this frame here, 7 o'clock. And really, that's a couple of things that we've got to worry about. If I just sort of illustrate this here for you. First off, one of the things we got to worry about right here are these individual cells out ahead of it. Those individual cells ahead of it, that's going to be the ones that would have the tornado threat with them if there were a tornado threat to emerge. You can see primarily the risk for that is over here on this side of Indiana. And that's, of course, where the enhanced risk is, which is, I think, why the enhanced risk shifted a little bit today, too. And then going beyond that, we've got the squall line that's going to come behind it. And it's a nice little narrow band, probably some damaging wind gust with this. This will race across from west to east across Indiana as the evening goes on. Eventually, what you're going to see is these two kind of congeal a little bit. And as I, put this into motion a little bit more, you see it kind of, the squall line sort of fades out and it just becomes sort of a blob as it exits the state. So if we look at timing from this future radar view, we get those individual cells beginning to pop here around 5 p.m. And this would be closer to I-65 and then racing on to points east. Squall line approaching, trying to get its act together, but still not there at that time again. And then, of course, everything moves across Indiana, and it's all gone here by out of the state here by, say, about 9 or 10 o'clock, according to this version of Future Radar. Of course, timing is different on every model, but I'll talk about some general timings here in a minute, and we'll kind of fine-tune that a little bit, but that gives you a little bit of an idea. Severe weather parameters certainly there. First off, it's going to be windy tomorrow, so hang on to your hats. We're talking 15, 20, even 30 mile per hour sustained winds during the afternoon and evening hours. And Saturday's not going to be much better. We're looking at 20 mile per hour winds on Saturday too. It's going to be a couple of very windy days ahead of us. Part of that is, of course, we've got this screaming jet stream over us. We're looking at the mid-level jet stream. This is about 18,000 feet up into the air. And so, here we are tomorrow afternoon. You notice that here in red, we've got this jet max. It's sort of starting to come towards us, but we're still got some strong winds overhead. And then as it gets closer to time, right as the severe weather would be moving through Indiana, that's where the jet max starts to come in. And we're talking 70 plus knot winds at 18,000 feet above us. So and actually, if we were to take a look at the 850 millibar wind speeds, you see a pretty good little low-level jet, or at least it has in previous runs. Let me open up this, and I think we'll probably see something there with it as well. So here we go. Yeah. And this will be about the time. This will be at the time severe weather is moving through. You're still looking at 30 to even 40 knots of a low-level jet. This is winds at about 4,000 feet above us. So wouldn't take much for a thunderstorm to be able to tap into that kind of wind. Low-level jet, remember, If you look up at the clouds in the sky and you see them fast moving, those low level clouds, that's what you're seeing is the low level jet in action. So you got, but bottom line, you got plenty of wind speed in the atmosphere to be able to work with. It's a high wind shear kind of environment. It's not a very high cape kind of environment, though a high instability. It's rather more on the low end. So here's what you have. We're looking at mixed layer cape in the atmosphere, capes of convective available potential energy. Just a measure of instability. How much energy is there in the atmosphere available for these storms to be able to tap into? And reasonable for February standards. We're talking 7, even 800, 900 units, close to 1,000 as you get here in some places. So that's not incredible cape for summer standards, but that's decent cape for winter standards. And so certainly the energy will be there for enough to be able to spark off some severe thunderstorms. Now, I will caution you with this. In these high shear, low instability environments, I've seen a mixed bag before. I've been forecasting for this, doing this for a number of years for you guys. Did this for a number of years prior to starting Southern Indiana weather as well. I've seen a lot of these events over the years, and I've seen several of them come to be pretty good events where we had a lot of warnings. I've seen some with a very similar setup that were complete busts, and we didn't get much of anything. So I want to lay that out. There's really both on the table. This could be a complete bust, or it could be, a pretty healthy, I hate to use the word outbreak, but the potential is there for that. And so you really just going to have to wait and see what fires tomorrow. I would not be surprised at all to see multiple warnings out of this tomorrow, for especially as that squall line starts to mature and you get those damaging wind gusts to 70 miles per hour or greater. I think there's a real risk for that. The tornado threat is a little bit low on that end. Let me just give you an idea of that. It's not zero, all right. But if we look at our significant tornado parameter here, what you see is this is, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. That's nothing. You want this 1 or 2 or above before you really get a decent little outbreak going on. And the significant tornado parameter is just not there when it needs to be. It's not to say that the risk is zero. It's elevated ever so slightly. And, if you look at your energy helicity index numbers as well for this time, and this is the afternoon hours, this is today. Let me get this to where we're at tomorrow. And if you get to that, you notice, well, it's not the greatest. It's there a little bit, but these numbers are kind of subpar. You really want these in more towards these yellow and red colors before you start to see anything significant out of this. So this indicates to me there's a little bit of spin in the atmosphere, but just not a whole lot. Might be just enough for some of those individual cells that would happen to race out and form in advance to be able to do something. Along the line, though, damaging winds are going to be your primary threat. And if you actually just take a look at a sounding of this, and I know, let me get it up here, it was covered up by my my little webcam thing down here, but if you look at the sounding, this is a vertical profile up into the atmosphere from the ground all the way up to 40,000 plus feet here. And you got your dew point line and you got your temperature line there in red. And basically, this is telling us a saturated early lower atmosphere. It gets drier as you go up. That could limit, by the way, how tall these storms could end up getting. That could limit storm growth overall. If you look at this on the hodograph, you see that, that the winds just don't veer all that much. And you can kind of see that from here. The winds are at the surface down here out of sort of the southwest. They don't really change direction much until you get way up into the atmosphere, and even then it's not all that much. It's mostly unidirectional winds. That will greatly limit the tornado threat. That's not to say the tornado threat is zero, but that certainly can weaken it. It's not zero because you do have surface winds going up that increase dramatically with height, and that could cause enough spin to be able to do something, but this is working against it. And if you look at the probable hazard type here, that what the modeling is spitting out, it would say a weak tornado. So the weak, it's not a zero by any means, and I got to stress that, but this is not a significant threat to us. And so if we take a look at that, then we take a look at what these what these threats potentially will be. Let me get this out here where we can get it out of the webcam, and you'll be able to see it, I think, a little bit better. I'm trying, folks. Good grief, it's not wanting to cooperate. There you go. All right, so here is your Friday severe weather threats for us. And again, there's your outlook, the enhanced primarily for, the eastern half of Indiana. Tornado threat, I think, is fairly low out of this. Large hail threat, maybe moderate, especially with those individual cells at the beginning. Damaging wind threat, that's going to be our highest threat out of this. As for your timing and impacts, if you are west of 65 from, say, the Wabash River over to I-65, which goes from Louisville up to Indianapolis here, 4 to 9 p.m. Eastern time is sort of your target window for your best chances of severe weather. East of I-65, which would be this portion of Indiana here, you're looking at about 6 to 11 being your better times for some significant severe weather out of this. So that gives you a little bit of idea here on the timing, and then I'll end with this, folks. Just take a look at temperatures. Unseasonably warm. The ensemble's actually going a little bit lower, only taking us to 69 tomorrow. It's not going to be a completely cloudless day, but I think we're going to see a fair amount of sunshine tomorrow. I really do, unless something drastically changes in the modeling. Some very dry air overhead in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, so I think that ought to give us at least a partly sunny sky. I think 70s are likely again, even though the modeling here that I'm showing you not suggesting it. I think 72 to 75 excuse me, I think very reasonable. The closer you are towards Louisville area, I think you could get even really close to 80 tomorrow. It's going to be a screaming day for February standards. And then as you go down on this, we certainly cool down for the weekend. In fact, I'm not sure if we'll even make it to 42 over the weekend. We may end up only making it 38, 39 degrees on Saturday. It's going to be a pretty cold day, but it's a very brief snap. You notice you're in the mid to upper 40s on Sunday, and then you're back into the 50s to possibly even some of these days being in the lower 60s again. As you look towards, this goes all the way out to March 10th. Well, you look at this and you see the extreme warmth of the 70s is gone, but still, temperatures flirting with 60 degrees, many and in the 60s many days. Well, that's significant warmth for March standards, early March standards, late February, early March. That's an early spring. Now, what does March hold for us? I'll be releasing my spring outlook here within the next couple of days. Hopefully, probably not tomorrow due to the severe weather threat. Maybe on Saturday or Sunday, I'll get that spring outlook. But overall, I think the warmth is going to continue. I think we're looking at a warmer than normal spring, but we'll discuss those prospects in a little bit more detail when we get there. All right, folks, that is it for this update. Stay weather aware tomorrow, whether you're in the slight risk or whether you're enhanced risk. It's all a risk, folks. So just keep it tuned right here to Southern Indiana weather. I'll be having updates throughout the day tomorrow, and of course, as storms fire tomorrow evening, be covering it live for you. So keep it tuned right here for more. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite with SouthernIndianaWeather.com. Have a great day. Be safe.